Hello again, this is Ralph Boehm, Representative Ralph Boehm. This is our second show, and today we have Rich Lascelles with us to go over some of the bills on his committee, Municipal and County. First thing we want to do again is to, you can go up here on find out the COVID information. And what I found out that people that couldn't make their appointments, if they're over 65, you're getting phone calls. And I know somebody in Litchfield that didn't after, hey, wait a minute, I can't register, but to be getting phone calls. The problem is, for some reason in New Hampshire, we seem to be on the bottom of the list for getting vaccines. My granddaughter, who's a nurse out in Chicago, they're giving vaccines to the general public. And we hear that's happening maybe in Massachusetts too. So we seem to be on the bottom of the list because I guess we did such a good job in keeping the numbers down. So hopefully that'll change, and I know I'm 75 and my appointment's not till March 3rd. So keep checking, and and like I said, people are being called for appointments. Now, last week I went over how to find out what bills and whatnot. The thing is, and I forgot one thing, so I'm gonna quickly cover that. Remember, we go to state legislature. And right on that page, if you look down, it says links to remote meetings. So if you want to sign on to speak for a remote meeting, and I'm going to do that now because I have a meeting that, a committee meeting that I want to speak on. It's not in education, it's in election law. And that's on one of my bills, and that's on the 12th. So I click on the date. Okay. Then it says select a committee and House election law, and then select the bill, and it's HB77, and then I am an elected official, and then I'm going to say, I'm here where it says myself, I'm going to say, prime sponsor, so they know, and I support this bill, and I wish to speak on the bill. And what I'll also do, I will also send them my, remember we talked about last week on, you go to the committee and you can email to all committee members. So continue, and putting my name, and phone number and email address, and continue, and yes, it's all true. And that's it. So that's how you can log in, sign in to testify on a remote bill, on a bill, okay? And one thing about it, everything is pretty much, you can't go up to the State House and testify, so everything is remote. So that's how we do that. Now, a couple of things I want to what's happening is one big, you've all probably heard about it, is HB20. That's the bill for, I call it money following the child. Only state money. And some people have been saying it's a voucher program. It is not a voucher program. An account is made, so for example, if you want to take your child out of, say, Campbell, and put him in a private school, in Litchfield, that's not too much of a problem. You have to provide your own transportation and whatnot, so maybe, where's the nearest private school? So I don't think we'll have too much of a problem in Litchfield. But, so anyway, the money goes into an account. So for example, if you're gonna pay tuition out of that account, which is only like 1/4 of what the school will get. There's no local money is being used. It's just the money that the state gives to the towns per student, the adequacy aid. So that money can be used to pay tuition, part of the tuition, because a lot of it's more than that, so the parent would not have to come up with the difference. So that's what it is. We're still working on the bill. We had a 4-hour session on last Tuesday, which locally everything was remote because we couldn't, there was a snowstorm. So no matter what you hear, there's no local money involved. And I ran on school choice. Parents could send their kids to what school they want to, and it's all got to be in an approved, New Hampshire approved school. So somebody can't just open up the thing and say, I'm going to this school. So in the approved school or homeschooled. So we found that not that many people are going to take advantage of it, especially in Litchfield. But one of the things we had the concern about we've had a big drop in enrollments over the last 10 years. More than 20,000 students across the state are no longer enrolled in our public schools because the student population is going down. And it's supposed to get more than that the same maybe in the next 10 years. So for schooling, we got to think of how we got to afford our schools and what do we do different. And because one of the things now is we have less students in our school, but the budget keeps going up. So we have a problem there, and that's something we need to work on. So this bill and other bills we'll be voting on February 24th and 25th, which we'll have a full House session. Remember, I explained that. And what I hear, that's going to be at the Bedford Sports Complex, because we can't crowd all the people into the Reps Hall at the State House because seats are small and we'll all be sitting together. So with that, and if we have time, we'll come back to more education bills. And with that, I'll turn it over to Rich. And what bills are we going to discuss? You want to bring up, Rich?
I didn't know that we were meeting at the sports complex.
Yeah,
I'll bring my tennis racket.
There you go. Right.
That'll be good. It's interesting. Don't you find that with all the COVID stuff and all the Zoom meetings and so forth, that in some ways it makes it better?
Right. Like last Tuesday, they would have canceled it and we wouldn't have had to meet. So we all Zoomed.
I just talked with a constituent tonight who is a young lady that I had as a student at Campbell, and she said, well, why don't we do a Zoom call, and rather than trying to hustle around and meet in some office or someplace. So in some ways the whole concept of Zoom has helped communication.
Yeah, we've been doing some committee meetings and stuff like that. One, which was a bad one, rather than Zooming, they used WebEx, which was terrible. But there are other applications that people are using, and there's also Microsoft Meetings. So, I mean, there's a couple of them, but Zoom is the best. And just over the holidays, that's how my granddaughter from Chicago, we did Zoom meetings. So.
I was interested when you said that Hannah said they're giving, up in Chicago, they're giving those shots to the general public, where my family is from downstate Illinois, rural Illinois, and I was talking with my nephew earlier today, and my 80-year-old brother hasn't been able to get a shot because none of those vaccines are making their way down to the farms, But anyway, this is my third term. I'm on the Municipal and County Government Committee, which is a new committee for me this year. And we had our first committee meeting on Monday, which was, I went to Concord, and we had about half the committee members there, and the rest were Zoomed in. But it's and all the testimony is Zoomed in. So, but it works okay. So I have 4 bills that I'm personally sponsoring this year. One is a bill, HB247, which is a bill that's trying to provide alternatives to opioids for pain medication. And my friend, Representative David Lundgren from Londonderry, is a prime sponsor on that. And I know in my personal experience, I'm in a lot of pain, and I specifically have stayed away from opioids. And in many cases, doctors feel that opioids is the first alternative. And this bill would try to make opioids more or less the last alternative. Try other things. In my case, I get my care from the VA, and I specifically said, I don't want opioids. And guess what? They prescribed some pills, and it was an opioid. So that wasn't good.
Yeah, well, I think comment on that because I had a kidney stone thing, and so rather than give me an opioid, they gave me naproxen. That nearly killed me. So I told, so people handle things differently. So I went back a couple of days later. I said, give me Dilaudid because I know that works and it doesn't mess up my brain. So everybody, and most of my oxycodone pills or whatever they are end up in the please call box. I mean, because I only take them as needed, not you know, forever type thing. But yeah, some pain medicines work for some people, and it's personal responsibility type thing. But the alternatives might be just as bad.
Yeah. Well, I think that, you know, one of the problems, if you look at where opioids have had a big impact on the local communities, like for instance West Virginia. West Virginia is probably worse off than New Hampshire, and it's the rural areas of West Virginia. And the problem is the doctors out there felt that the locals couldn't afford anything else. So they gave them opioids as a prescription, and oxycodone or whatever they were taking is the second bill that I'm sponsoring is the pollution bill that you're very familiar with, Ralph.
Right, yeah.
HB135.
And that's in municipal and county?
No.
No, that's in judiciary.
Yeah. And that is meant, for those of you in the audience, for the people who were on wells and were perfectly happy with a well. Well, along came the PFOA scare, and they hooked up to Penachuk, and now they have this huge bill for water, and it through no fault of their own.
What was that number again?
135, I think.
135, okay.
And
I should know that in my bill.
So our bill is to force a polluter, doesn't have to be Saint-Gobain, but in this case it's the most applicable, but to force them to pay those folks water bills. And like I say, it's in committee, and we'll see how it goes, but I think if it makes it out of committee, I think we'll have bipartisan support.
Yeah, there's no date on that yet for the committee.
Oh, it isn't?
No.
All right, another that I'm co-sponsoring with Mark McLean, who is a representative here for Litchfield as well as Manchester.
I'm going to see if I can get him in on the next meeting.
It's HB 264, and the purpose of this bill is to make hospitals give you a good faith estimate of the cost of non-emergency treatment. Right. So if you go in for some sort of treatment, let's say it's a colonoscopy or something, and they should give you an estimate of how much that costs ahead of time. So you can actually shop around for that. Not that you'd go to Walmart or something for a colonoscopy, but it gives you more control. I think part of the problem with all the healthcare costs is that people don't feel they have any control over it. And this would at least give people the feeling that they had some more control over that cost.
Right. So, yeah. One of the things, and that's been brought up over the past, because it's amazing. My insurance, my supplemental insurance, pretty much covers everything. The problem is, if I go, say, for a colonoscopy, which I've had some years ago, and it comes back with the bill, and it says it costs this much, Medicare paid this much, your insurance paid this much, which is still a whole lot less than what the bill is, but I owe zero.
Yeah.
So the problem is I think really the people without any insurance shouldn't have to pay any more than what fees they're charging the insurance companies.
Yeah.
And like you said, shopping around, because you see advertisement for people, companies doing MRIs, do it here type thing, and so hopefully that goes around, because there are places, not hospitals, where you can get a lot of those procedures done.
Yeah, I think competition is always good.
Right. Yeah.
And competition in healthcare is something that's been lacking.
Yeah.
And why not do it for a non-emergency treatment?
Right.
For a story about colonoscopy, I once went into the VA for a colonoscopy, and I was, at the same time, I had an upper GI tract. And
wow.
I just...
Top to bottom.
I told the VA, I said, you can use the same equipment, just make sure you do the upper GI first. Anyway.
I had hand surgery, and it was done at the Nashua, I can't think of what it's called, but it's not the hospital, it's the thing that just does day surgery and stuff. And it was a whole lot cheaper than doing it at the hospital.
Yeah. The last bill that I am sponsoring is HB 586, getting a lot of interest in this bill. I'm co-sponsoring that with Joe Alexander out of I believe he's out of Goffstown, but it was put in last year and got lost in the COVID shuffle. But the idea behind 586, and I know I'm going to take some heat on this one, but it's to provide financial investment and incentives for workforce housing. And let me just tell you why I'm doing this. We have a real problem here in New Hampshire with housing for millennials, if you will. And I know many of you know that I am a substitute teacher at Campbell. And I was talking one day with one of the young teachers over there, a young lady who's a teacher. And she was telling me that she loved Campbell, she loved teaching there and everything, and she planned to teach here as long as she could. And I said, well, why don't you move to Litchfield? She said, shoot, there's no way I could afford to move to Litchfield. And so I talked to her, and she was living with her parents, and I think I've heard it a lot of people my age, and they have young kids, and they have kids that want to live in town, but it's very hard for people young people particularly, to afford to live in town. And I know that we have like 10 or 12 of the over 55 communities. And in my mind, if we can build over 55 communities, why can't we make under 35 communities? Having communities like that where people would have, young people would be able to afford to buy a house in Litchfield and take advantage of all that our lovely little town here has to offer, and not, be stuck with a humongous mortgage or whatever. And like I said, I anticipate that I'm going to take some heat on that, but that's fine.
One of the problems I see with that is, of course, the schools. Also, I think other than, like you said, a teacher, where else there's there to work in Litchfield? There are a couple of small companies, but nothing major. The school system is the biggest employer in the town. So the surrounding communities, like Manchester, they need workforce housing because people working there. So that's one of my issues. And also I remember over the years, anytime it's come before the town for a planning ordinance change and it's to do with affordable housing, even though it's the law type thing, and it's been shot down. I mean, even though. But the thing is, yeah, we have a problem, but how do we fix the problem? And I think I look at it this way. With all the apartment we have in Litchfield, the mobile homes we have in Litchfield, and I think it needs to go on. I have no problem with workforce housing, but I think it needs to go on what percentage of the homes, how many people need workforce housing that work in Litchfield? You know, I mean, so that's one of the problems I have with it.
Most people that live in Litchfield don't work in Litchfield.
I know it. Yeah.
I mean, it's a bedroom community.
Yeah.
You know, people go to Massachusetts or they go to Manchester, to Nashua. So you know, there's probably less than 10% of the people actually live
there's
in
no place. No, right. There's no place to work in Litchfield.
Yeah.
But anyway.
So in the municipal and county government, we have 43 bills. Like I said, last Monday we started hearing bills. Some interesting ones. A lot of the committee work has to do with county-specific bills, like to force an audit of the county's books within 30 days of the close of a fiscal year, that sort of thing. Some specific things for counties with respect to the sheriff and whatever. But one thing that has been proposed is to prohibit accounts that have been zeroed out on municipal budgets. Like, for instance, if the budget committee votes to zero out a particular line item, it prohibits the selectmen from transferring money into that account.
It's zero.
If it's zeroed out. And so it's seen as a way for the selectmen to go around the budget committee. So there's a bill to prohibit people from doing that. Another bill that we got introduced, but it was withdrawn because there was a legal opinion that it wasn't needed, and that was to allow municipalities to allow open containers at town functions, what the committee, the testimony that was given was that if a town wanted to do that, they could do that now. Now, I wasn't aware of that, and I'm not sure how I would feel about that, but at least that's what was said at the committee.
Yeah, I think what that comes about, for example, if somebody wants to hold a function at Darapon and whatnot, that whoever the people are, the function, they have to get an insurance binder for that anyway. So I mean, that's one of the issues on that. Yeah, looking down some of these bills is relative to warrant articles on official ballot town, school district, and village district meetings. This might be similar to what's happened before, and I mean something you might look at. Because I think some of that is about amending warrant articles at deliberative session, and that's always failed. Relative to town health offices, relative to the city of Claremont, relative to the close of county's books of records, relative to acreage required to build certain single-family homes. I don't know where that's going to go, but. Oh, here's a good one. Prohibiting municipalities from requiring a license for a lemonade stand operated by a person under the age of 18.
Yes.
And that comes about from a bill some years ago that you have to get a license, mainly for ice cream trucks and those kind of things, for people going door to door and selling stuff. But it never really got down to, so I guess it's been ignored in Litchfield, but I guess some places are, no, you have to get a license.
I don't know. Sometimes you look at these bills and you have to grin. You know?
Right, yeah. That's why I brought that one up.
We have a bill. We haven't heard the lemonade stand one yet, but I'm kind of sitting on the edge of my seat on that one because I like lemonade sometimes, so it's good. But what if they're selling root beer or something?
Right. It should be anything under 18. Kids selling something for a fundraiser or that kind of thing. Yeah. And we see a lot of lemonade stands around in Litchfield all the time, and they're raising money for some cause usually.
Yeah.
So
Now, one thing that what we're seeing, I think next Monday, HB 404 is perambulation of town lines. And a lot of people might look at that and say, what the heck is perambulation of town lines, And basically, this is something, it's a holdover from a time when the British ruled, and every 7 years, to this day, as it stands right now, every 7 years, the selectmen are supposed to walk all the town lines all the way around the town of Litchfield. Now, I don't know the last time it was done.
I know, I did it when I was selectman. That was 25 years ago. More than that.
But I mean, you have to make sure that the markers are in place and so forth. But the problem that I see, in Litchfield, it would probably be pretty easy to do because it's impossible to walk the town lines of Litchfield for the majority of the town. For instance, you couldn't walk up the Merrimack River, And in the case of our border with Londonderry, it's mostly wetlands. I mean, and there's no way that you could walk those lines.
Yeah.
I mean, Hudson and Manchester, you probably can, but in some cases, it's important for instance, a person who logs, and let's say he owns property that's on both sides of a town line. Well, he has to know whether this log that I'm cutting right here, is it in this town or is it in that town? Because there's license requirements, there's taxes involved, and all sorts of things. So there's people have actually called in and said, I see a big need for perambulation. And but the bottom line, and like I said, we haven't heard testimony on it, but next Monday we'll hear the bill itself is eliminating the 7-year requirement, and it's saying that selectmen can do it at their discretion, and they can also use GPS and drones and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of waiting on the edge of my seat to hear that one too. But
I did that perambulation when I was a selectman. The south end of town was easy. There's a marker behind Eddie's garage. There's a marker at the trailer park on the other side of Page Road. There's a marker on West Road with Charbonneau's bit places now. The problem was with the north end. So the mark on West Road is the border between Hudson, Litchfield, and Londonderry. The 3 point. But we had a problem with Manchester, and because they were at the same time doing their perambulation, and they did find that the Yard Restaurant, that's now not the Yard Restaurant, it's something else, was in the wrong. It was in Londonderry or Manchester, one of the two, but it was wrong. The good point too is Dr. Dion's office there on 102. The building itself is in Litchfield, but some of the parking lot is in Hudson. So those things you got to be careful of.
Well, tell me, what did you do for the town, like you couldn't do anything about the Merrimack, but between Litchfield and Londonderry that went through wetlands.
That's the one that we at the what Brent Road is now. There we found there was a point there that we could perambulate. Between that's a Manchester, Londonderry, and Litchfield point there. We did that. Was that at that time? That was just the sand pit. Now it's streets and houses. But at the north end, we had to wait for Manchester to finish theirs. Because they were having a problem with Londonderry, which we came up. But with the river, I think the state controls the river, because and so the line in the middle of the river. And
I know that Jason Brennan is very interested in that island.
Oh yeah, where's that island?
And is that island part of Merrimack, or is that island part of Litchfield? I know he has big plans for that island. I think there's a castle or something going on that island.
That was and the problem with rivers is they
move.
They move.
Yeah, that's true.
The Connecticut River, for example, is entirely in New Hampshire. It's not split like other rivers that divide the state. The Connecticut River is entirely in New Hampshire when they did that border. So we own both sides of the Connecticut River. But that makes things easier. But I remember when Hudson and Nashua were redoing the bridge, Hudson did put out the money initially, and they had to wait more than a year for Nashua to pay their half. But there is a problem with that. But I think as needed, I think. Probably better.
Well, it'll be interesting whether it gets out of committee and so forth. I'm kind of looking forward to that. But so we're meeting next Monday and Tuesday up in Concord, and then we're off to the races.
All right.
We have session the 24th and 25th, and so we'll see how it goes.
Okay, we only have a couple of minutes left, so I think maybe I'll go through some bills that we've heard and that are coming up, in education. For example, we exec a thing on Sigmund University, giving them allowing if you got a graduation certificate of them, it's recognized in New Hampshire. That was a problem last year when it failed because of a disagreement with some members and the head of the thing. Also, there's a bill coming out that passed. It was unanimous, establishing a committee to study the funding of tuition and transportation for career technical education, which will help Litchfield when the result of that committee happens, because we're only getting, like, transportation-wise, so, for example, all the students that go from Campbell to the CTE at Auburn and then back, we only get like 10 cents a mile. So even if a parent doing the transportation or even the child itself doing it, they're only going to get 10 cents a mile. And we're looking at that. And also more on the tuition on that. Because one of the problems is it's only for out of district. A big issue with Manchester. For example, they got students at Manchester West going to a CTE. The CTE is near, or might be even in, but near on the other side, over on the east side, near Memorial. So that's a big distance. And you're going through the city. It's a whole lot shorter and faster for kids from Campbell going to Auburn, and we're getting reimbursed for that somewhat, but Manchester's not getting anything. So that's a problem there. So that's the bill, and another one was, and we passed the bill also, 18-0, this is going to the whole floor to vote on, but it's going to be in the consent calendar relative to certain offenses that prevent employment in the school. And this, I thought I mentioned this last week, 2 weeks ago, was added in human trafficking to the law, and also for out of state, because one of the problems we were having is people come to say they're going to work in New Hampshire, get a background check, it comes out good, they go to their home state and said, well, I passed in New Hampshire, because not everything was being checked. So it's a bigger background check, and protect the students, for people working in the schools, not just teachers, for anybody working in the school for background checks. So
I hope that doesn't knock me out.
And I haven't even applied. So. but I think so. I think in a couple of weeks, maybe I'll see if we can get Mark McLean in to go over what's happening. He's on Judiciary. He's the Vice Chair of Judiciary. And maybe we'll cover again our bill on the, because that's in Judiciary. And so we'll cover that. And so, like I said, if anybody has anything they want covered, send me an email, but say show and name and for Litchfield, because all this mail we get, I mean, from all over the country, I'm in favor of this, I'm against this, I'm going, nah, I don't care. But only if you're from Litchfield, yeah. So, like I mentioned last time, over the years I've been there, it's my 7th term, the worst mail we got from all around the country was the speed limit in Lake Winnipesaukee. Anyway, with that, hope you have a nice evening. I'd say go to the session tomorrow, but you probably won't see it, but see this before that. So anyway, good night. Rich, thank you.
You're welcome.